Welcome back to Old Coin Adventures. Today, we're uncovering the story of one of the most legendary pennies ever struck in the United States. A single 1909 V.D.B. Lincoln Cent has sold for well over $150,000, turning what was once a simple 1-cent coin into one of the most sought-after treasures in American numismatic history. But this isn't just another story about an expensive coin. In today's documentary, you'll discover why the United States decided to replace its classic coin design for the very first time, who the mysterious V.D.B. really was, why 3 tiny letters shocked an entire nation, how one controversial decision created an instant rarity, and why collectors are still willing to pay 6 figures for a single penny more than a century later. To understand why this tiny copper coin became a legend, we have to travel back to an America that was changing forever. The year was 1909. Across the country, newspapers, schools, and public buildings were preparing for a historic celebration. It wasn't the anniversary of a war. It wasn't the opening of a famous monument. It was the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. For millions of Americans, Lincoln wasn't just a former president. He was the man who preserved the Union, led the nation through its darkest chapter, and changed the course of American history forever. His face was known in every town. His legacy was respected in every state. And as the centennial approached, one remarkable idea began to take shape inside Washington. What if, for the very first time in American history, a real person appeared on a circulating U.S. coin? Until that moment, American coins had always featured symbolic figures like Lady Liberty. Putting a president on everyday money was considered almost unthinkable. Many believed it looked too much like the monarchies America had fought to escape. Others argued that Lincoln had earned a place unlike any leader before him. The debate continued, but eventually, one decision changed American coinage forever. The United States Mint approved an entirely new 1-cent design. It would become the first regular American coin to feature the portrait of a real historical figure. The responsibility for creating this historic design was given to a talented sculptor named Victor David Brenner. Brenner wasn't simply designing another penny. He was creating a coin that would become part of everyday American life, passing through millions of hands for generations to come. Every detail mattered. Every line, every letter, every symbol would become part of American history. But neither Brenner nor the officials inside the United States Mint could have imagined that one tiny design decision, almost invisible to most people, would trigger one of the biggest controversies the Mint had ever faced. A controversy so powerful that it transformed an ordinary 1-cent coin into one of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever produced. And it all began with just 3 tiny letters. Let's continue. When the new Lincoln cent entered circulation in August 1909, Americans immediately noticed something different. For the first time, a real president appeared on an everyday United States coin. People admired Lincoln's portrait. Many praised the fresh design. Newspapers called it a bold new chapter in American coinage. Everything seemed perfect, until someone looked at the back of the coin. Near the bottom, hidden beneath the wheat stalks, were 3 small letters. V.D.B. Most Americans had no idea what they meant. Some believed they were part of the design. Others assumed they were a secret government code. But they weren't. Those 3 letters stood for one man, Victor David Brenner, the artist who had designed the coin. Including an artist's initials on coins wasn't unusual. Many designers had quietly signed their work for decades. But this time, something was different. The initials appeared larger than many critics expected. Within days, editorials began appearing across the country. Some newspapers argued that Brenner was taking too much credit. Others claimed the initials looked more like an advertisement than a signature. Public pressure grew rapidly. Members of Congress began asking questions. Treasury officials received complaints. And inside the United States Mint, a difficult decision had to be made. Should the initials remain? Or should they disappear forever? The debate didn't last long. Only a few days after the coin's release, Mint officials made a dramatic announcement. The V.D.B. initials would be removed. Immediately, production stopped. The working dies were modified, and before long, new Lincoln cents began leaving the mint, without the famous 3 letters. At first, it seemed like a simple design change. No one imagined that decision had just created one of the rarest pennies in American history, because something extraordinary had already happened. At the San Francisco Mint, only 484,000 Lincoln cents carrying the V.D.B initials had been struck before production ended. Less than 500,000. Even in 1909, that was an incredibly small number. Without realizing it, the United States Mint had accidentally created a future collector's dream. A coin that would spend decades growing rare, more desirable, and far more valuable than anyone could have imagined. The story was only getting started. When the redesigned Lincoln cent returned to circulation, most Americans believed the story was over. The initials had disappeared, the controversy had faded, and life moved on. But something remarkable was happening. Without anyone noticing, the original 1909 V.D.B pennies were quietly disappearing. Some were spent every day, passing from one pocket to another, without a second thought. Others were dropped into cash registers, piggy banks, and forgotten coin jars. But a small number of sharp-eyed collectors understood exactly what had happened. They realized the San Francisco Mint had produced only 484,000 examples before the initials were removed. That tiny mintage changed everything. Collectors began visiting local banks, searching through rolls of pennies, hoping to find just one. Coin dealers quickly noticed the growing demand. Almost overnight, the 1909 V.D.B Lincoln Cent became one of the first modern American coins that ordinary people intentionally saved. As the decades passed, its rarity became even more dramatic. Many coins disappeared forever. Some were heavily worn after years in circulation. Others were lost, damaged, or simply thrown away by people who never knew what they owned. Every missing coin made the survivors even more desirable. By the middle of the 20th century, the 1909 V.D.B had already earned legendary status among collectors. Owning one was no longer just another addition to a collection. It became a symbol of achievement. Today, finding an authentic example in everyday circulation is almost impossible. Every genuine coin is carefully examined. Its mint mark, its V.D.B initials, its color, and its condition can mean the difference between a valuable collectible and a life-changing discovery. Even heavily circulated examples can sell for several hundred or even several $1,000s. But coins preserved in exceptional condition tell a completely different story. With bright original surfaces, sharp details, and professional grading, their value climbs dramatically. Some of the finest known examples have crossed well into 6 figures. Not because they're made of gold, not because they contain rare metal, but because one unexpected decision inside the United States Mint turned an ordinary penny into one of the greatest legends in American coin collecting. And the most incredible chapter was still waiting to be written. More than a century has passed, yet the legend of the 1909 V.D.B Lincoln Cent continues to grow stronger with every generation. Today, collectors don't see it as just another old penny. They see the beginning of the Lincoln Cent series, a symbol of American history, and the coin that proved even the smallest design change could create one of the greatest treasures in numismatics. Whenever experts rank the most important Lincoln cents ever produced, the 1909 V.D.B is always near the top of the list. Not because it carries the highest face value, not because it's made from precious metal, but because it tells a story that no other penny can. A story of celebration, a story of controversy, and a story that transformed 3 tiny letters into one of the most recognizable symbols in coin collecting. Its remarkable journey reached another unforgettable chapter in January 2023, when a spectacular 1909 V.D.B Lincoln Cent graded MS67 red by PCGS crossed the auction block at Great Collections. Collectors from across the United States and around the world watched closely as bidding intensified. Every new bid reflected more than the value of a coin. It reflected the desire to own one of the greatest Lincoln cents ever struck. When the auction finally came to an end, the historic penny realized more than $168,000. The coin that once purchased almost nothing had become one of the most valuable 1-cent pieces in American history. And that's exactly why the search never truly ends. Somewhere, an old family collection may still hold an overlooked treasure, the forgotten safety deposit box, an inherited coin album, or a dusty jar resting on a shelf for decades, could still contain a remarkable discovery waiting for the right person to recognize it. That's the magic of coin collecting. History doesn't always survive inside museums. Sometimes, it survives inside an ordinary penny. The 1909 V.D.B. Lincoln Cent reminds us that greatness isn't measured by size. It's measured by the story a coin carries through time. If you enjoyed this documentary, be sure to like this video and subscribe to Old Coin Adventures for more incredible stories about America's rarest and most valuable coins. And remember, every old coin has a history, but only a select few become true legends. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.